Ah! Hello, llamas and llamettes. Wait, hello. Welcome to Shark Gaming. And in today's video, we actually have two purposes today. One, more or less introduce myself. I've been playing for a couple months here, and I do stream majorly Elder Scrolls Online on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3:30 p.m. I am in Arizona. For some reason, we don't believe in time change, so I believe that is the equivalent of 2:30 Pacific Standard Time currently. It's confusing, look it up, but 3:30 p.m. in Arizona time is when I actually start, and I go usually till about 7 p.m. I will put the link to my live channel on YouTube, because I'd go through YouTube to do everything down below, as well as check out some of the VODs I upload for previous. So what have I been doing? I have been going through the process of trying to figure out this. I had an idea for a style of combat, and I have gotten 2 characters to level veteran 1 so far, trying to emulate this particular process, and I believe I've actually found that in a Magica Nightblade vampire. So that is our second purpose today, is to go over that vampiric build for you guys. Just test out yourself, see if you like it, etc., all those things. So let's go over it. What are the different things that I have? So to start off with, like I mentioned, it is Magica, and I am using currently I have the Mundus set, that, and as well as the Twilight's Embrace 3-piece set. Not really a big deal at this point in time. I'm only vet 1. I will be looking into progressing in as I progress into the veteran 16 levels. This will most likely change, so this is not a huge thing right now. I am, however, using an Infernal Staff and a Restoration Staff. Originally, I was trying to do this with a Sword and Board and Wrestle Staff, and it just wasn't coming together. But the Fire Staff really brought everything into perspective, everything into cohesive synergy, so to speak. So that's what I'm using as my main weapon. As far as skills, now this is still in the works, still being tested and whatnot. I'm still unlocking various abilities so that they can be tested out and everything. But the idea is to have a high damage output with high sustain without necessarily being a tank. Now I do have a heavy chest, a leather pants, but the rest is going to be cloth for the cloth passives that you can find here in the light armor set. But I will have eventually, currently, keep this in mind, currently I have 0 passives. None. They are all in my crafting abilities right now, all my points, so I do have to go out of my way to get some sky shards so I can get some more to start putting into passives. So keep that in mind. That might change the build later on as I learn more about how this is going to be set up, but for now this is fitting the general idea that I'm going for, so it's really working out for me. So what are we currently using? We are currently using, with the Fire Staff, Lotus Fan. This ability might change to be the unmorphed version. I currently have used this particular one because it had a dot, an AoE dot for that matter, as well as the slow. I've recently added in crippling grasp to the build, which essentially covers all that as well, minus the AoE part. But the AoE on Lotus Fan is actually rather weak, so I don't use it for the AoE, more for the slow and damage. So I might end up using just the unmorphed version, which is going to have a higher damage, almost the initial impact is going to be probably twice as much, based off of what I've looked at the scaling of it, but it won't have a dot anymore, and instead of a slow, it will have an immobilize on players or a stun on non-players. But since this is going to be mostly for PvP, having that in higher initial burst damage is going to be more valuable than this little tiny dot that Lotus Fan actually has. It's actually, when compared to other dots, Lotus Fan's dot is very small. Next we have SAP Essence. This For Nightblade is the only form of major sorcery that they have access other than the mage entropy skill, which this is not necessarily a bad ability, but I prefer the SAP Essence. One, it goes great with your Lotus Fan. You dash in. SAP Essence, you get the AoE damage plus a minor heal plus major sorcery and major brutality. Major brutality on this build isn't really that big of a deal, but it just fits in the play style more so than entropy. However, for PvE dungeon purposes, I will most likely switch to entropy so that I don't have to be up in the mess of everything and less likely to die. But for PvP, this is a very aggressive playstyle with these two abilities, and I really enjoy that playstyle. I'll show you that at the end of the video, how that plays out. There'll be a short segment of just gameplay here. Next, of course, crippling grasp. This is the hardest hitting dot that I've seen in the game, period, as far as I can tell, as well as it provides a short-term immobilization, which if they break out of it by dodging, they are wasting a ton of stamina for a 1.5 second immobilize. So like, when you use this and get the immobilize, it's kind of a cherry on top of the icing. It's not necessarily the main purpose of crippling grasp. On top of that, it also provides you a 40% movement increase and reduces their movement speed by 40% as well. So it just has a lot going for it, and all built into this one ability, which is actually going to be really nice, and it does quite a bit of damage. This actually has, with my current set, at Veteran 1 with my current sets, it has the potential to do 10,000 damage alone by itself over the course of 8 seconds. That is not insignificant. That is not insignificant. Next, we are a vampire. Got like a fuzzy in my mouth. Alright. Anyways, we are a vampire, so we are using invigorating drain. As you can see, it's level 3. It's almost been... I'm almost vampire 10, and this is almost maxed out at vampire 4. Currently, I'm getting... I think at max this ends up being... I would assume 5 ultima per second, but I remember reading 6 ultima per second. So currently, let's just base it off what we have now. 4 ultima per second, that's 12 ultimate every time you cast invigoration and go through the full 3 seconds. That's amazing. On 2, it's a 3-second stun, with which against a target they have to break out of or have to use something that gives them some sort of immunity to CC. So it's a great ability for forcing out those moves and draining someone's stamina that way. And then on top of that, it still does damage. Right now, with my set, it can crit, dealing 1.7 damage. That's roughly 5,021 or 5,100 damage is what that comes out to be if it fully crits, which is on par with Wrecking Blow and other similar abilities. I haven't used a ton of abilities really. Now on this particular bar, I am currently using Impel. So the goal of the build is to get your target down to 25% health and then spam Impel, which is critting anywhere between 7.5 and 8k right now. So imagine at Veteran 16 with the proper set of gear. Essentially, it's an execute. Once you get to 25%, your target is most likely going to die. Just straight out with 1 or 2 impels, which auto-canceling, you can get them out in a second. 1 second you can get 16,000 damage done, because if you auto-cancel animation cancel correctly. And then, now, my ultimate for this bar might change. I still have to unlock and then test it, but I'm currently using Soulstrike, mainly because it's almost the same thing as Invigorating Drain, except for its ultimate, so it uses your ultima, has a massive movement slow, which kind of fits into the theme elsewhere on the build. Now, is that necessarily important? Not really. What is important is that it does 12,000 damage over the 3 seconds. It takes 3 seconds to cast roughly. I mean, the numbers here are kind of odd, but let's say it's 3 seconds to cast, and it is doing 12,000 damage, which each tick can crit. So based off what I've seen, without landing major sorcery, just, you know, just walking up and soul striking, I've seen 3k crit damage. I don't know how many ticks it actually does. So if you do the math, if it did 3k per second, that's only 9k, and this does 12k. Assuming, I mean, that's resistances and everything probably built into that, so it might be mitigating some of the damage. But I believe it deals more ticks. I'll have to look into that. It's really not that important right now. The fact that even at 9,000 damage, 10,000 damage over 3 seconds is ridiculous, and that's a ton of damage. But it's interruptible, so that is a problem, which is why I'm going to be trying out Donbreaker in its place, which works. It's going to be an instant cast, shorter range, it costs the same amount of Ultima. It's going to deal, if that crit, I would imagine probably a 7-8k crit plus the damage over time. So it's dealing twice as much, nearly 3 times as much as invigorating drain instantly. Think about it that way. So it's going to have a higher burst, plus it still has the damage over time over 5 seconds. So that is still not an insignificant damage ult. A lot of people really like Donbreaker. So for now, I'll use Soulstrike as I try to unlock Donbreaker. I'm not that too far off. You only need fighter skill 10, so we're almost there. And that is bar 1. And then bar 2 is my restoration staff. Now, currently it's kind of all janky, mostly because I'm still unlocking things. But the idea so far that I'm going to be going with is I'm going to be going with Summon Shade, and I'm going to be using the mirror image morph, I think is what it's called, the one that lets you teleport. I am going to play around with this one though. I may end up not using it at all. I don't know yet. It deals minor damage. The damage really isn't what's going to be important. If you go with the first morph though, where you have 2, keep in mind that 471 magic damage per attack plus a crit would probably come out to 600 damage. At 2 of them, that's 1200 damage. That's the same amount of damage that Crippling Grasp is doing, and it lasts 4 seconds longer. So technically, that morph would be capable of doing over 10,000 damage. Again, that's not insignificant, so that's something I'm going to be keeping in mind. But more likely, I'll be going with the morph that allows you to teleport, which is going to give you more utility and survivability overall. Healing Ward, because it's amazing. I've seen this ward so far get as high as 9,000 point shield, a 9,000 point damage shield, and if it's not used, it will just straight up heal you for that remainder amount. So after a fight, I've walked away where I've had very little health, just use Healing Ward, it's going to full heal me after 6 seconds, I think. However long it lasts, yeah, 6 seconds. By the time it's done, it's fully healed me. I am thinking about 3 different abilities because almost every ability I have is Magica based. I am trying to fit in at least one stamina based defensive ability. So right now I'm going through the process of morphing Invasion. As you can see, I just need a point to morph it. If I use Invasion, it's going to give me the 20% chance to dodge, which is going to help against physical characters with lots of physical attacks, as well as the immunity to slows and roots, making me very mobile, as opposed to using Immovable Brute, which will give me major resolve, which will counteract a major fracture. So more or less, it's not really going to give me too much of a benefit as far as that, unless I hit, because I'm probably going to hit the soft cap for armor, I would imagine. But it's going to make me immune to knockbacks and disabling effects, as well as the Immovable Brute, I believe, makes Break Freeze break free cost half as much stamina as it normally would. Very valuable that's going to be as well. So lastly, I'm also considering, based off of how this particular bar is going to work, it's kind of going to be an off healing type scenario where, even though I'm going through the process of healing myself and sustaining myself and getting my mana back up so I can keep on fighting, the side effect is going to be that I'm also going to heal other people in the process. One way that's going to happen is going to be with funnel health. It's going to be my main attack ability on this particular bar, where it's going to heal me and 2 other friendly targets for 25% of the damage that it deals, which is fairly nice. I'm considering picking up Vigor instead of Invasion or Immovable Brute for that exact reason, which is not it's not a great heal. It's not a very powerful heal because it's going to be based off of stamina, but it's going to be a lot easier to manage because I'm a Magica build and I'm not using my stamina as much. And then as far as my weapon goes, I am working on unlocking Force Siphon. I'm going to go with the Quick Siphon, I believe, the morph that makes it instant cast. And the idea here still follows through with the overall idea of I'm attacking you, and because I'm attacking you, I'm healing myself. So that fits perfectly into the overall build. And that's going to be 1, 2, 3. That's all of the abilities there. I'm still working on that particular bar though, so that could be changed. Next time I update, you'll be able to see that. Other than that, this bar doesn't have a vampiric ability, so I am going to go with Bat Swarm, Consuming Swarm for the AoE heal. So it's going to deal damage over time in an AoE, and it actually does a lot of damage. Right now, 1357 per second for 5 seconds is as an AoE that also is going to heal me eventually, is not lost on me. That's huge. Now, one of the main drawbacks, one of the main cons that are part of the vampire is the 25% weakness to fire, as well as the 75% reduction in combat health regeneration, or just health regeneration in general. So this build does not rely on health regeneration, so keep that in mind. But for the fire weakness, you can do a couple things. One, I'm a Nord, so I am going to have to either get items with enough fire resistance to counteract that weakness, or put 100 points into Elemental Defender, which is the route that I'm actually going to go with. Put 100 points into Elemental Defender, which will give me 25%, which is the maximum amount, 25% fire, frost, and shock resistance, or damage reduction. So that's going to help with that fire damage weakness. But on top of that, it's also going to give you health return on critical hits, which is amazing. Well, when you are critically hit, you will get 113 health back. I'm assuming that scales. I'm not sure what it's going to be scaling off yet. Critical hit, same thing. If you critically hit, you get 255 health back. And then Unchained reduces the stamina cost of abilities for 3 seconds after breaking free of a stun, knockdown, fear, disorient, or stagger. So this tree in general is amazing. Spell absorption, not as great, but if you get hit for something that deals a magical effect that deals 30% of your maximum total health, which is a ridiculously hard hit, just so you know, that's a lot of damage. You will regenerate 267 Magica. And again, I'm assuming all of these will scale. I just don't know what they scale off of. If it's the points actually in the constellation. So right now it's 3. At 100, these might be higher. I don't know. And then, of course, I'll probably put the rest of my points into Hardy. Damage taken over time. I mean, these other two aren't as great. So probably these two right here. That is the main thing that I'm going to be doing to counteract the weakness to fire. Easier way to do it is just to be simply a Dunmer. Be a dark elf vampire, they automatically get as a ratio 25% damage or fire resistance. On top of that, other things, the Nord, the reason why I went Nord to begin with is because they have robust. At the time, I was not actually thinking about becoming a vampire, so keep that in mind. I was thinking about PvP in general, and the idea behind PvP is you have to increase your effective health as much as possible without affecting your damage output, so you have to balance it out that way. So robust is free health recovery, which will counter out the vampire health recovery debuff, and rugged is just a free damage reduction, which will actually synergize with the vampire undeath passive as well. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to actually counteract vampirism's cons, and if you do that, I believe that this will actually end up being a very strong PvP build. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Try it out. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the build overall. Now I'm going to leave in like a minute or two worth of combat here just to display what the ability, the overall build is going to look like combat wise, so you kind of have an understanding of that. And then I will come back sometime in the future with an update as I get closer and closer to V16 or T16, whatever it's called, Veteran 16, and start gearing out properly. And I will show you how I update my build to go along with that to fit into, I don't imagine it's going to change too much, but you'll see as that progresses. So other than that, llamas and llamanettes, thank you for watching. Subscribe, come watch me out on the stream. Click remember, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3:30 p.m. Arizona time, or I think 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Other than that, you stay classy, my friends. Now I'm gonna go do killing stuff. An elephant, oh. Animation can kind of make it a little